today we'll be talking about how rational are you? And as Max said, we'll be going to the basics of rationality, how we think about rationality. So we'll have some questions that help you evaluate how rational you are, and then we'll be exploring the nature of those questions, how we think about being rational, and discussing these things and how these topics impact our lives. So that's what we'll be doing today. So let's start with a rationality test. This is going to be the most important test you ever take in your life. So you'll have 45 seconds per question, and I'll be typing it. And don't cheat, that's irrational. So are you all ready to take the test? First question. Max was the president of a secular student club in college. He's an outspoken teacher in Alabama, defending the theory of evolution against religious parents who push him to teach creationism. Is he more likely to be either a teacher of biology or a teacher of biology and not vote for Trump? So which of these things is he likely to be? A teacher of biology or a teacher of biology who does not vote for Trump? Write down the answer. Five seconds left. Question 2. If all A's are C's and all B's are C's, then are all A's also B's? Seconds. Third question. Imagine your favorite actor endorsing toothbrush. Are you more or less likely to buy that toothbrush? Seconds. You're offered one of two choices. Either get $50 right away, or a 50% chance of winning $110. So either $50 guaranteed, or 50% chance of winning $110. It means 0%, that means you'll either win 0 or you'll win $110. Which do you choose? 5 seconds. You're told that a coin is fair and observe a coin is being flipped 99 times and lands heads every time. What is your probability that it will land heads the 100th time? Five seconds. Alright, so let's get to some rationality basics now that you took the test. We are not cohesive. We think we are a cohesive brain, and we are just, the thoughts, the feelings that we think we are the logical steps, we think we know ourselves. What recent research in cognitive neuroscience, behavioral economics, psychology shows us is that our minds are not cohesive. They're made up of many modules, they're made up of many complex components, and they act against each other. When we think we change our mind, when we think contradictory thoughts, it's okay, we actually are. It's okay to contradict ourselves. It's okay to be different. It's okay to not think the same things all the time. We are complex, and it's okay to understand that we are complex. What we are more like is this, an elephant and a rider. Now, who knows the analogy of the elephant and rider and can explain it to the rest of the group easily? Yes, what is your name?
Turning around? Is it the turning around an elephant? Is that what you're getting at?
That's not quite what I'm getting at. So somebody else who knows more about the elephant and the rider, but I appreciate you giving the answer. Max.
So the elephant and the rider is a metaphor for how we are mostly and most powerfully an animal at heart. Something that has an immediate sort of instinctual response. The elephant is not very wise. It has some ability to think, but mostly it just sort of powers along in some way. And then there's a smaller bit of us that is more reflective and aware. The rider on top of the elephant is capable of guiding that
very
animal,
small one.
but who is not nearly as strong and has to exert a weaker pull.
Yes, so the rider is the more rational part of ourselves, and it's the more logical one, and the elephant is the more pretty, colorful, emotional one. And it has, as you can see from the picture, it has many, many different components and layers and drives and desires. And the rider is more cohesive, uniform, and logical. But the elephant is much bigger and more powerful. So it's much more of who we are, it's much more a part of who we are, and we don't recognize it. When we think of who we are, we only think of this part of us, the brain part, the gray part. So the elephant is typically referred to as System 1, and it's an autopilot system. It's subconscious, it's automatic, it's habitual, it's what our habits are made of. It's very fast, it's very intuitive, it's very emotional. It takes milliseconds to turn on. Whereas the intentional part, the rider part, is conscious, mindful, it's attentive, it's slow, it's reasoning oriented, it's logical oriented. We need both parts. We can't survive without either part, and we are much more the elephant than we are the rider. So we have to remember that and keep that in mind, that we can't respect either system or orient toward just the rider part or just the elephant part. Both parts are really important to focus on. So both parts are really important for us to understand. So as part of that, we have to think about cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are situations where typically the elephant and sometimes the rider goes wrong. So these are typical mistakes in our mind that comes from systematic errors with how our mind works, with how the System 1 and System 2 function. The elephant part gets things right maybe about 80% of the time. So it's pretty good. It's pretty quick, reactive, that's good. But those 80% of the time, it makes systematic and predictable errors a number of times. So 20% of the errors, many times they're systematic and predictable. And they are called cognitive biases in the literature. There are some cognitive biases that have to do with the rider as well. So both of them make errors. So we can predict these errors. We can predict some of these problems, and this is some of the stuff that rationality focuses on. How do we predict the errors? And how do we change the elephant and the rider to win at life? How do we retrain the rider and the elephant to steer the elephant in the right direction for ourselves, to make the best decisions, to avoid these cognitive biases, these landmines in the road that lead us in the wrong directions, that lead us to make irrational decisions. So we direct the rider to motivate the elephant and shape the path to where we want to go. And this gets us back to the exam that we took just a little bit ago. Now you can cheat. You can talk to a partner for 5 minutes about your results, and then we'll discuss the actual answers. So, take 5 minutes, talk to a partner, find a partner around you, and talk about the results. So, Max was the president of a secular student club in college. So I want hands just before we go to the answers. How many voted for be a teacher of biology? Raise your hand. How many voted for be a teacher of biology and not vote for Trump? If all A's are, how many said all A's are also B's? And how many did not, presumably? Are you more or less likely to buy that toothbrush? More likely to buy the toothbrush? Less likely? Equally?
That wasn't an option. That wasn't an option.
That's part of being rational.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who would get $50? Who would get 50% chance of 110? So, for the probability question, who said something like 50%? Who said something like above 50%? So, above 50%? Above 50%.
Oh, above.
Yes.
Ginormous.
Yes.
Gotcha. 2,000%.
All right. Now you can choose. Answer 1. So, good. Looking out for the conjunction fallacy. All possible maxes are teachers of biology. Only some maxes will not vote for Trump. Yes.
Are all possible maxes teachers of biology?
Yes, in the question.
So the probability is 100%?
The probability that max for answer to 1 is all maxes are they teachers of biology, or are they teachers of biology and not who don't who?
But the probability of the first one is 100%.
Yes.
Oh, I missed that.
Yes. All possible
Don't
maxes
give me
are
crazy
teachers of biology, and only some will not vote for Trump.
I think like all maxes under consideration.
Yeah, all maxes under consideration. You have 2 options.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the conjunction fallacy. Remember, the conjunction of 2 factors, one that, is this clear to everyone? The conjunction fallacy is the idea that one thing, a totality, is always going to be bigger than some chunk of it, some pieces of it. Because in all cases, all maxes are teachers of biology, only some maxes will not vote for Trump. Alright, so the answer to number 2. You have to avoid the undistributed middle term error. Consider assigning the word human to letter A and ostriches to letter B. Letter C is 2-legged. Now it reads, all humans are 2-legged, all ostriches are 2-legged. If all A's are B's, then all humans are ostriches. Oops, doesn't sound like all humans are ostriches. So that's an error in that sort of terminology. Let's go on to C. Beware the halo effect. The halo effect causes us to perceive one positive characteristic of a person to judge the rest of the person's characteristics positively, regardless of the actual truth. So, if we have an actor who endorses, your favorite actor endorses a product, that doesn't mean the product is actually good. For example, the actor might have been paid to endorse that product. Now the evidence just indicates that the actor was paid to endorse the product. It doesn't mean that the product is good, and you should not convey your positive feelings for the actor to the product. Next, loss aversion. Loss aversion can cause us to do quite irrational things. Imagine repeating the exercise 100 times. If you choose $50 each time, you'd wind up $500 poorer on average. So, that means that it is rational for all of you in this room, who presumably don't really need $50 desperately, to choose the 50% of $110 for that choice. And finally, if you set 50% for the coin flip, you might be falling to conformity to authority fallacy. If an authority figure tells you that the coin is not loaded, but then you observe it land heads 99 times, it's time to update your beliefs. Don't believe that the authority figure is telling you the truth. Now the next part is just for you to think and discuss. Think and write by yourself for 5 minutes about how these biases might be negatively impacting your life, then discuss this topic with other folks around you, and write down any additional ideas you get. Please go ahead.
Thinking outside the math problem.
Alright, so I hope you had a good enough time to discuss these things, and this brings us to the end of the formal part, and we will go to the question and answer part at this point, where we'll discuss these topics, and you're welcome to ask any questions. For a PowerPoint of this presentation, you can go to slideshare.net and Intentional Insights. You can check out the free version of my book, Find Your Purpose Using Science. There, you can get in touch with me, and you can visit Intentional Insights content. If you want more information about this sort of stuff, Agnes will distribute a sign-up sheet where you have an opportunity to sign up for Intentional Insights email and listserv, to volunteer, donate to support our work. We do this work to reach out to a broad audience, to bring rationality concepts and effective giving concepts to them. There are a number of people here who are volunteers and donors to the organization. So if you want to support, donate, volunteer to the organization, you can sign up on the same listserv as well. And Agnes will also give out stickers if you want to show your rationality pride by having stickers around Intentional Insights. So please go ahead, distribute those, and in the meantime, let's share some thoughts and realizations that you have. Who would like to go first? Yes, your name. We don't get name tags.
I'm Jason.
Jason.
As far as what's the best way to get started, sort of developing a rational mindset, I'm thinking it's just Googling it more than anything, right?
Well, so Intentional Insights has a lot of content. What organizations specialize in is having content around this. So reading Intentional Insights content, and then there are a lot of specific questions and strategies there that you can pass it on to Jason. That what you can actually find out, figure out, use to get into this stuff. And there's a lot of resources and links there to other ways of developing a rational mindset. Another way to do so is, of course, coming here to Columbus Rationality. That's a great resource. So we have presentations like this here. This is the basics of rationality. Next time I'll be presenting here on effective altruism, so how you think rationally about giving, for example. And a lot of similar topics are presented here. So coming here, doing these presentations is another good way of doing that. Sure.
Is it okay if I supplement your comment on
Please.
the way to get started? One way that I found pretty easy to start the habit of when I came along to rationality was basic, what's called probabilistic thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I notice myself forming an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
I think of it as a percentage chance.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just saying to myself, I think X is true,
Mm-hmm.
saying to myself, how sure am I? Maybe I'm 95% that X is true.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm 60% that X is true. Simply developing that habit has a lot of benefit.
Definitely. And Max has several posts on Intentional Insights around developing probabilistic thinking. So that will be definitely a good place to start. There are some posts on Intentional Insights around agency, so how to actually figure out whether your beliefs are true and how to make decisions and so on, and around elephant and rider stuff. So these are good starting posts to get into rationality. Max.
I thought the most interesting part of the quiz was the bit about the toothbrush, because there's something in rationality called a bias blind spot, and this is something that I struggle with a lot. It's been demonstrated that you can actually do some harm by exposing people to knowledge of cognitive biases and things, because you you hear about this sort of thing and you're like, oh, okay, now I will avoid it. Now, if there's a halo effect or something like that, I'm going to just not react that way. And this works all well and good if you're the writer, if you're being deliberate, if you know about the halo effect, then you might reason, okay, this is not good evidence to buy a toothbrush or something like that. But still, the bias is in the elephant, right? The bias is in the emotional or immediate or intuitive automatic reaction to that endorsement and to the attention that it brings. And I think that there's a trap that we get into in rationality where we hear about something like the halo effect, and then we spend some time thinking about it and attending to it, and suddenly we think we're perfectly rational or not prone to it. And I think that there's something to be said about acknowledging our biases and steering away from them hurting us, rather than pretending like we are above them or they have no impact on our lives. Do you have any thoughts on this? I don't know.
Sure. I think that's a really important point, to remember that regardless of knowing about bias, we're still going to be biased, and we're still going to be emotionally pulled in this direction. There are a number of strategies that have been shown by research to work against biases. One is to notice situations when we're likely to be biased. So just bring them to our conscious attention. So when an actor we like endorses a toothbrush, notice that that's a situation that's likely to, cause us to be more likely to get that. When we see an attractive guy standing by a car, notice that that's likely to make us more likely to buy that car, in the commercial. So, or a girl for those who are guys. So, whichever or whatever whichever sexual preference you are likely to go for. Yes. So those are things that are likely to. So there's a matter of training oneself to bring these situations to one's attention. There are strategies called trigger action plans that one can use to train oneself. And there's some content about this on the Intentional Insights website. We talk about this in Columbus Rationality, where when you notice a situation that you acknowledge is going to bias you, then you bring that to your conscious attention through a trigger action plan, which I'm not going to talk about unless somebody wants me to delve into it. But then you have a strategy to counteract that. So one strategy to bias oneself is called de-anchoring. So de-anchoring is a strategy where if you know you're biased, you push strongly against that bias. So if you know that you're going to be biased by a halo effect by an attractive guy standing next to a car, you're going to push strongly away from that, and you're going to discount your liking for that car by saying, I'm more likely to like that car because there's an attractive guy standing next to it. So that's an easy way just a quick way to deal with the halo effect. There are various other strategies for debiasing as well.
There's also the other push, the other way, where it's like you're not going for something because someone's endorsing it, but you also buck against it. Like there's a lot of people that are against top 40, so they assume that all top 40 music is bad, or or if a movie is high grossing, they assume it's almost like a countercultural thing. I find myself having to be like try not to have that bias or that impulse to just discount something that's popular.
That's true. So just because something is popular doesn't mean it's bad. Just because something is not popular doesn't mean it's good. So it's an indication. Just because something is popular just means it's popular. It means it's fitting into the population's taste. It means it's well marketed or something like that. So it doesn't mean anything beyond that. Right. So it's important to look at the evidence and see what it's actually indicating. See what the evidence is actually indicating. For example, if you have a lot of people who believe in God, it is not necessarily evidence that there is a God that exists. It's evidence that there's a lot of people who believe in a certain idea and they were convinced by a certain idea. Now, that might be indication of a certain very powerful religious propaganda machine that has convinced a lot of people into believing that